Hello guys, welcome to the part 2 of our multiple user authentication system with the Django Rest framework and React. In our previous video, we built out our authentication API for multiple users where we have freelance users and the client user. So in this very video, we are going to build a React front-end application to interact with this very API. Alright, so if you've not actually watched the part 1 of this series, the link is in the description. Please check it out. And also, if you've not subscribed, hit the subscribe button right now before we start. It really helps this channel to grow. And then with that said, let's start. So we're going to install React and we're going to install Redux because we'll be using Redux for state management, and also we'll be installing some other package like React Router DOM also. Alright, so this is the get bash terminal. Inside our drf-mods-auth, here we're going to create the React app for our front end. So we're going to create by using the nps create React app, and we're calling our app front end. So this will actually takes a couple of minutes to install, so I'm going to pause the video. Alright guys, our React app has finished installing, and for some reason the name front end couldn't work. I don't know why, so I just changed it to frontend-app, and that installs. So we see it into the frontend-app directory. We have a React app, so you can open it in any of your favorite code editor. I did in Visual Studio Code, so you can see our React app. So we'll quickly clean up this app now by deleting some of the files that we don't really need in this project, like the logo, the tests files and all that. So we'll quickly delete those files. If we go to the JS, we need to take out this since we alright, so we're going to install, say npm install as use, and also this we are going to install React Router DOM version 5, also 5.2.0. Alright, so we also need React Redux, need Redux tongues, user tongue, middleware, we need prop types, and Redux DevTools extension. Alright, so these are the packages that we'll be installing. So we'll install this now, and this will take a couple of seconds. So once we finish installation, we'll begin our project. Alright, our packages are finished in setup Redux store. So we'll start from there. So inside our source directory, we'll just create a simple file called store.js. So first we import the create store. So import the create store from Redux, and also the apply middleware, and also we need to import compose with DevTools from Redux DevTools extension. Alright, so also we need to import the tongue middleware. First, let's create a variable called middleware. Set it to a list of middleware, which we just have just the tongue middleware. Create a variable store which we call the create store. So this takes in two major arguments, which first of all we pass in the root reducer and also the middleware also. So we're going to create this in a second, but let's pass in the root reducer. We've not created this yet, so we'll create that later on, and we pass in the compose with dev2, which in turn takes in the apply middleware, and here we spread the middleware. So that's we create our store for into export default our store. And heading over to our index.js, we need to give our app access to our store, the store we just created. So for us to do that, we need to import two things. We need to import provider from React Redux, and also we need to import the store we just created. So we wrap this React app with our provider, and this will give all our React app access to our store. So we need to provide the store. Alright, so that's all about setting up our store. So we need to create the reducer, the root reducer that we are passing to the store. We don't have this yet, so what we do now, inside our source folder, we just create a folder called reducers, and in here we just create a simple file called root reducer. Alright, so in our root reducer, we're going to import the combine reducer from Redux. And here we're going to create our root reducer, and this we're going to call the combine reducer, which is going to take an object that is going to contain every other reducers that we're going to create in this app. So any reducers that we create will be added here. So like the auth reducer, which is obviously what our app is all about. So we've not created this reducer yet, so when we create it, we just name auth and pass in the reducer, import it also. So before we'll come back to that, so let's first leave it at this. So we need to export this. We can save this at first, and this reducer is what we passed into us. Alright, so we need to import this root reducer into users. Let's actually set up our actions. So we will create an action folder, and inside the action folder we create our action types. Alright, I'm actually using this kind of project structure in case you want to probably build on top of it, make it a full-fledged application. It will be very easy for you to add on to it. Alright, so that's why we're actually just using this project structure. Alright, so inside our action folder we just create a types.js. This is going to contain all our action types, and also we need to create the auth actions, which is going to be auth.js. Alright, so first inside our action type, here we're just going to paste all the actions. So you can see we have the client user loaded and the client user field, freelance user loaded and freelance user field, login success, login fail. So these are the actions that we'll be using in this app. Alright, before we start writing our auth reducers, making our API request, the auth actions making an API request, let's first of all set up our auth reducer. So inside the reducer file, we create a new file. We call this auth reducer. Alright, in our auth reducer, first of all we need to import all the actions. So we're just going to grab that. Alright, so import all the actions that we created, the action types that we create. Next, we need to create our initial state. So we're going to cause this, we're going to set it to none. Is token. We're going to get the token from our local storage. Alright, and also we want to also get the user object that will be coming from our response once we make our API initially as none. Alright, so these are our initial states. So after that, we're going to create our reducer main. So here we're going to use our switch statement. I believe most of you are familiar with this already. So we're going to use our switch statement, which is going to have our action type, perform some certain operations of where we have the register success, and also a case for success. Alright, so if we are able to register for clients or register for a user which returns success, we want to return a new set of objects in our state. First, we'll need to set the local storage payload, because the payload is going to be coming from our action. So action.payload token. Alright, so the payload actually it's the response from our API. Alright, so once we set the local storage, we want to return some values. So we're going to say return. First, we need to spread state. So going to be coming from our action. Alright, so we're going to see. Alright, so what that means. Alright, so that's what we do. And if for any reason registration failed, we also need to return something. So we're going to say for case of action type. So in case of register client user field and register client user freelance user feed, if such case we also want to remove anything from our local storage in case we have any kind of empty state. Alright, so that's for this very first two case, and in here we need to also return the state. Alright, we'll come back to this auth user because we're going to add other actions, do login, logout. So let's save this and let's quickly build out our component, which is like our layout structures. So inside our source, we just create a new folder, we'll call this, and inside this component let's create a simple home React app. Alright, so in the home page here we're going to create a very simple GSS markup to just link it to route to create either a freelance user or a client user. So here we're using Bootstrap. Alright, so we have container, we have the flex. Here we're going to put in sign up, and also we need to import link from React Router. And in here we're going to just give this a clap. Let's just grab this freelance sign up. Alright, so that right, we have our client sign up component. Here we're going to we need to import state here, use state and here we are going to first of all just create a simple state. Is equivalent to the use state. Right, so we'll come back to that. So let's quickly create the GSS for our sign up component, and here we're going to give it, and here we're going to have the on change. We've not created this handle change yet, so we'll create that very soon. Alright, so we'll just quickly grab this. Alright, so these are our form values. We have our confirm password 2, and we've not created the handle change, and also we've not gotten the values property. So what we're going to get the values from the state here, which is an object, and this object is going to be receiving a username and a password too. Alright, so these are going to be in our clients, and also we can easily destructure our clients by saying is equal to the client, which is our state. Alright, so we're actually destructuring them from our state. Alright, so that's that, and then I think we can visualize our form now. So we've not actually imported this component into our app.js. We'll do that shortly. So let's quickly create a simple button in our form. Alright, so for sign up, which is a Bootstrap button, we need to actually create the handle change and function. So just hit and simply going to call the set client. Sorry, this is not equal, so should be a colon. Alright, so the handle change is just calling the set client, which is the function that comes with the use state. Alright, so passing the e.target.name to e.target.value, so that will give us the handle change method. So right now we've not been able to visualize anything yet, so let me quickly save this. I'll go to our app.js. So we're going to import the hash router, to import switch. Alright, so that will do for now. So we also need to import our components. For our GSSM app div, we can wrap the router. In between the switch, we just create our routes. So render out that component later on. So let's add the exact also here. Alright, so these are our two basic routes for now. So subsequently we'll add more routes to it. So let's save this and then so say npm start. Just added the bootstrap css cdn link. You can see it's cdn. You can see signing as an employer, signing as a freelancer. So let's quickly check if we can actually. Alright, we can see our sign up page for the client. I guess it's the best design you can get now. Alright, you can actually make your own much better. So our focus here is not actually CSS, is actually get this to work fine. So this is fine for us. Alright, so right now we can't actually process anything. If we fill this form and submit, it will work fine. So let's quickly set up our auth reducer, and also let us set up our auth actions. So inside our auth reducer, we just need to import our auth reducer. Alright, so once we have that, we can pass that into our combine reducer. So you can just name a variable called auth, and we just pass the auth reducer to it. Alright, so that's fine. So we save this. Actions, this is where we are going to perform most of the logics to create a new user. Alright, so before we come to this place, let me just quickly set up the freelance also, because the freelance sign up page is kind of similar to the client sign up page. We'll do that. Let me just quickly create a freelance sign up page, and also let's create a private route, that is a dashboard for both the client and user. And here we create the client dashboard, a new React app. Alright, so we spin up a new React dashboard, React app. Same thing for now. Let's create a private route for these two dashboard. Alright, so to create routes that only a specific users can access, like maybe only the freelance user can access, or a route that only the client user can access, we'll create a new folder inside our source directory. We just create a new folder, we'll call it private. Alright, private, we'll just create a file which we're going to call private routes. Alright, so in here we're going to import some few things. We're going to import routes. Then secondly, we're going to import something we're going to import the use use selector hook from React Redux. This will enable us connect to our Redux store. You can use any name of your choice, but I'm going to use C private route, which is client private route, and this is going to take him taking an object. Alright, so that's it. So in here, first of all, we need to get the Redux state, and that's the results in our store state using the use selector hook. Auth reducer. Alright, so we're going to get the state.auth. Oh, we're getting some errors. One error here which it says imported as auth reducer was not found. Okay, let's check our auth reducer. If we exported it, we didn't export it, so let's export cons auth reducer, so we can return in here, which is because of the path that is provided. We need to render. Alright, so we need to pass the process into, then we need to render whatever component that we provide. So in that case, for us to actually render the component, first we need to do some check by saying if, then else if. I'm going to check if the inverse of the value of state dot is authenticated, state dot is client, that if it is not authenticated, that is authentication return false, and the is client return false. In that case, it means the user is not authenticated. The user is not authenticated and it is not a client. For that reason, we need to return probably a redirect, or you can return a render of a new component, maybe an access denied component, with some kind of message that you are not authorized to view this page, or we can just return a redirect. Yes, we can return the component that we passed in if this component has any props which we are receiving from our render. We want to pass the props also. Alright, to the component. Alright, so that's for the very first client private route. So similarly, we're doing same thing for the freelance private route. So let me just kind of save our stress of rewriting and just paste the private route for the freelance user. Alright, so we'll do same thing for the freelance route, which we check if the state is loading, we return loading, and we check if the state that is authenticated is true and the state that is client is false. If that is the case, it means the user is not a client but a freelancer. So we just return the component and passing the props as usual. Else we just redirect to the login. So alright, so what we're going to do next is we're going to quickly set up this freelance signup.js, which is kind of almost similar to the client signup.js. We're just going to grab everything from here, paste it in here. So we'll just change wherever we have the client, we change it to freelance itself. Client, we just change it to freelance. So every that's in the same form. Alright, so that gets our sign up freelance sign up page set up. We can save this, and in our app.js We'll just quickly spin up a React component here. Alright, so we'll just simply build out the form for login. And this form is what you're going to have to fill, which is the username and password. Alright, so let's quickly create import useState. Okay, once we have our useState, in here we can create a simple state. In this case, we should pass in the object of username and the password. Alright, so that's what we have in our user. It has two fields of username and password user. Alright, so this username and password is what we are passing into our values here. That's what we are passing into the value. Alright, so that's set up for us. So let's create our submit button. Call this login. So lastly, what we'll do here, we just need to write the login handle or login change, just return our set user function, and in here we just first of all spread our previous state. We add our new state to it, which is coming from our form. Alright, so that's what we're going to do here. Spread the previous state, and then we said a.target.main is equals to a.target.value. Alright, let's save it and then create the routes for the login page. First, we need to import the login component. So right now there is no link to login route. Login route. So we'll create a navigation bar shortly. But before that, if we just head back to our browser, if we refresh, yeah, so let's head to login/login. Let's add the exact parameter to it. So if we refresh and just go to /login, you can see we are getting our login components. Let's quickly add a simple heading to it in login sign in. Alright, you can see we have our username and we also have our email. Alright, so if we actually go to our app.css, and just clear the default CSS. Okay, I think it's a bit better. So we can easily just put this signing into this column just before form. So that's fine. So right now we can't actually perform any logic, so that's what we're going to do now. We're going to start making our API requests to actually create any of the user and also to sign them up. Alright, so now we just head straight to action. Inside the auth.js here, we're going to make imports. First of all, we're going to import our we're also going to import all our action type for the different actions that we are going to take. So that's the fine. So first of all, we're going to create the action to create a new user. So we're going to say export const an object of the user credentials, which is the username arrow function, which also returns a function which is the dispatch function. Alright, so which has a parameter called dispatch. So in here, first we need to get our config data, that's the credentials, which we call config. And this config, we just need the headers, and the only one we want is just the content type. Alright, the content type, which is application.json, that's fine. And secondly, we need another parameter, which is obviously our body, as the body of our request, the JSON, and here we're going to pass in the object of our password and password. So this will give us the body of our request. In here we're going to say axios.post, and here we need to provide the URL to our backend API, which is, I guess that's correct. So let's double check. If we go back to our backend, here we have the sign up, so that will be the URL. And secondly, we need to pass in a config labels our header and also the body. This is the body and the config. Alright. And this return for us a promise. This takes in the respond. We're going to call the dispatch to it. First of all, action type of register, and also the payload be respond.data. Alright, that is coming from our API request. We want to console log the res.data. Alright, so this is actually the response from our API. So that's that. And lastly, for some reason, maybe the registration failed, we also want to catch that error by using the catch promise, another action. Want to dispatch another action. Alright, so you can also return me a payload of like an error message, but we just leave it at that. So we just will console.log the error for debugging purpose in case we have any error or such. So this will come as error.respond. That's all we need to do. So similarly, we are also repeating the same thing for a freelance user. So we just grab everything here, and we are not a client user, so we say freelance user. Alright, expecting the same parameters, dispatching and action. We need the same header, the body also is same, and then the endpoint is not the same. We need to change takes in the same body, takes in the same config, and the action is this time is going to be and same thing. And also let's quickly create the action to log in a new user. So let's just do everything once. Same thing, we're going to export const. We just call it log function that also returns a function with the dispatch feeds that we want. So stringify them. We have the body, then we can make our API request to our login endpoint by saying axios.post. We'll provide the endpoint also, which is the username and password, and also the config as well. So this one is also returning promise, so we have to get it then, which give us the, we can call it data or we can call it respond. And in here we can dispatch an action, and the action we want to dispatch is the type of login success, and also we want to set the payload equals to the respond dot data. Alright, so that's for the login. And secondly, we also want to catch any error, so we want to error callback, which also dispatch an action, and this action is the type of login fee. Alright, so that's for the login action. So and then inside our reducer, our auth reducer, we need to handle the login. And similarly, if the login is successful, we want to set the local storage to the token, and also we also want to return some values of the state. Alright, so we want to return the spread of the state, so that's that. And for the login fee, we also want to do the same thing with the register fee. So in that case, we just add another case here of login. Alright, so in our component, we are actually going to bring in these actions. Alright, so let's start with the sign up. And sign up, here we are going to create the handle submit function, which we actually call the create client action. Alright, so and that we need to access that through the props. So we're going to pass the create client user function, our action that is coming from our auth action, to our props. So we're using the React Redux connect, so we're going to import prop types, and lastly we're going to import the create client user from our action. Alright, so that will do for now. Then what we need to do is we need some of the feed or some of the attributes or property from our Redux store, which is we need the authenticated boolean value, we need the is client boolean value from our store. So for us to get that, we will be using the old method of map state to props, and this is going to have a parameter of state, which is our state from our store. And yeah, what we want from the state is the is authentic, because that's what we call it in our store. The is client state. And lastly, for us to actually pass this to our props, we need to define the prop types for this component. The props know that it's a function by using the prop. Secondly, the is authenticated. This alright, that's a boolean value, and the is client. Okay, so we need to pass in the disperse props. First of all, we need to pass in the map states to props, and the second parameter, which is the dispatch. So the match dispatch to props, which the only actions and the dispatch action that we want is just the create clients, so we'll pass that in. So by this, our props, the props of this component have access to this value. We can destructure them and get the is user. So once we have this in our props, we can create our handle submit. So first of all, we want to prevent the default action by saying e.prevent. So once we do that, so create a class called, create a new object called a new client. Our state, because we've already destructured this state, we just get the name, get the email. Alright, so once we do that, we want to call our action, which is, and the object is going to be our new. Okay, so that's all we need to do for our handle submit. So what we actually call this handle submit is our form submit. So in our form here, we are going to call it on submit work. Alright, so that's that. So once we submit our form, it will call this function, So one more thing is we want to check once the user is authenticated. We don't want the user to be able to see this sign up again because they are already logged in. So it's nothing. We have to enter down. Alright, so that's imported. I want to redirect to alright. So once we do that, we redirect the user to the dashboard, the client dashboard for this. So let's quickly set up the routes for the dashboard, the two dashboard. So if we go to our app.js dashboard component, we must import. We have the client. We need to import our private route. So in here we're going to render the dashboard component with the private route. Alright, things are right. So let's check our alright. We are getting some error from our command line. It says in client signup.js typo in static class property declared. Alright, let's quickly check that up and see where that we can just wrap this around this. Alright, that solves the problem. Sorry, you have to be lowercase prop type. Alright, that's for that. Everything is fine, though we are still having some warnings. Refresh. You can see I'm getting our components. Alright, so I know we may have some errors. First of all, let's try and see if we can sign up. And one of the errors may be with course, because we've not handled the course from the back end. So if we open our console now, right now, if we fill in this form, if we try to create a client user, we'll get an error. You can see post request connection refused. Alright, type error cannot read property of undefined data. That is simply because we will not actually handle course. So because of that, it's trying to make a post request to this endpoint, but it's refusing to allow it, so it's returning. We quickly install the Django course on the header, and we just bring it into the install down, and secondly the course middleware. We just grab this. Alright, then we can set our allow origin. We can just paste this here, and in this case we only want to allow that of course is out of the way, so we need to start our server fresh one more time, make sure everything is working. So let's try it one more time. We hit the sign up button. Let's check our console and see if we are having any kind of error. We are getting bad request status of 4, and also we are also getting an object of password. This field is required. Okay. Alright, the reason why we are having that error was simply because in our create client user, we were mistakenly passing in password 1 in here. So we named here password 1 and we named here password 1. That was the reason why in here we were sending just passwords, so there was kind of a naming conflict there. So what we just simply do is change this to password and change this to password, not password 1. So we'll save. So if we try that again, client sign up, let's just create another. Okay, so if we hit the sign up, you can see we are redirected back to the client / dashboard. Alright, so everything's working fine. So you can see we are getting our response, which that's good. So In our dashboard we have nothing yet, that's why we are seeing a blank page. So we can head back to up. Next we will quickly handle the login, and also the freelance sign up is similar to the client sign up, so I may leave that for you to handle. So we'll handle the login part of it. So if we go to the login component, right, the login is not too far from what we did in the client sign up, just that both the client and the freelancer will be using just one login component, but the login component will do it in such a way that it will be able to differentiate who the user is, if the user is a freelancer or if the user is a client, by the credentials that they are providing. Alright, so simply import connect and we import the login action. Alright, so we also need to import redirect. Okay, so and also the prop type. Alright, so here in the bottom where we're also going to create the map state to props, where we're going to map our states to props and also define the prop types as we do before. So we just call the connect action. Alright, so that we do. So this do, so we now have just structure them here. Just the way we did, we also create a handle submit here. We want to call the login function. So another thing we need to do is in here we need to also perform our check. I want to check for two things. First of all, we need to check if the user is logged in and also if the user is a client. So what we are doing here, we're going to check if he's authenticated and if he's client. We want the user to be redirected to the client dashboard, so we don't want them to be able to see the login page anymore. Then if the user is authenticated and if he's not a client, we also want to redirect the user to the freelance dashboard. Else we want alright, so that's the only change that we need to bring. So if we save this and so we need to call this handles login submit inside our form. So that's all about the submit. So before we can test this out, let's also create the logout and also create a navigation bar, a simple navigation bar for us to actually see when the user is logged in. We don't want them to see we want to provide the logout link for them, and also the component. Here we'll make this a very simple React component. Alright, it's called navbar. So let me just bring in the first we also make some imports here. We're going to import fragment, React fragment. Alright, we'll be using that, and also we need to import link, and we'll be reporting the use selector and the use dispatch from React Redux. But before then, we are going to change this to fragment. We're going to grab a simple navigation bar from Bootstrap. Is here we're going to display our list of links. So but how we're going to do our link is, before here we're going to create inside this number, we're going to create two links. We'll say cons. One is auth link, public link. While the public link, we're going to paste it here, the login. Alright, so these are the public link. Then the private link, which is the auth link, we're going to also create something similar to that, but for that we're going to import some few things. First of all, we're going to import the use. Alright, so once we import these two, first we need to get access to our global state using the use selector hook. So state, we want to return the state.auth because we only have the auth in our state, which is the auth reducer. So now use selector. before the tags here. Then before we come back, we'll come back to this. Let's quickly create the logout action in our action creator. Now we just say call it logout, and this time we will not only need the dispatch, we will also need to get state, which is used to retrieve the state, which the state we want to get is the auth state, and from the auth we want to get the token, because the token we can pass it over to our header. So next we create our config again. So outside the config, we want to make a check, say if there is a token, if a token exists in our state, we want to attach the token to our request header from our state. Alright, so it's to our backend by saying request a post, which is /API/logout. This time we have no body, so the body will be none. I'll pass in the config, which includes the header. Alright, so once we have that, this also return a promise. We also need to say .then we'll just log out the user. So that's all. So if for any reason our logout has an error, we need to also catch that. Right, so that will do for our logout action. Alright, so we just want to dispatch the logout action. So also we need to also handle the logout, also provide the logout case, logout success, which actually remove the token from the local storage and sets the state to the default initial state by section a reducer action for client load client user and load freelance user client user loaded, and this is actually going to return an object. Alright, similarly let's also handle the action type to retrieve the freelance user. Alright, so that's for that. And lastly, the load client user fee and the load freelance user fee. If for any reason we couldn't get the user, the freelance user, we couldn't get the client user, we also want to handle that action too. Add them to want to remove the token if there's, and reset the state, everything back to its original default value. So back to our auth action. Also, we need to create an action to actually retrieve any of the user, freelance user or the client user. But retrieve the token, and also want to get the value of the client. Alright, so we have the user is logged in, that is if there's a token for this user and if he's a client or not, before we decide which user is actually logged. In that case, we want to attach the token to the header, our API request, by saying as use.get. This is going to be a get request endpoint of client/user. I also want to pass the config to the client user loaded. We do. Alright, so this will actually okay. So we can also do similarly to get our freelance user. It takes in the dispatch and it gets state, getting for the top token, and checking if the client is false. We're attaching the token to our header, catching an error, also dispatching the freelance user fee. Alright, so that was do for the two. Back in our navbar, we have access to the state. Alright, and also want to also create dispatch using the use dispatch hook. Alright, link in this URL we need to give it a class. Alright, so that's for that button. So you handle the on click is this logout button that is going to dispatch our logout action. Right, that's the reason why we created our dispatch. And secondly, we also need another link to display the username. This is, we just put this inside. Or better still, let's make a span Alright, here we're going to display the logged in user's username. So, and this strong tag, we're going to display username. So we have access to our state in here, so we're going to say state.user.username, which will return the username for us. S, if the user is not logged in, we don't want an empty string. Alright, so that will give us the logged in user. The user that is logged in is named there. Create and on click. We're going to import. Alright, so this is the action we want to dispatch now when the user clicks the logout button. Dispatch the logout action. That's also, you see how easy it is to use dispatch hook. So we just call the use dispatch hook. We also dispatch, and from there we can use dispatch any display our nav link. Here we use React to insert any of the link. Depends on the user that is logged in. If the user is logged in, we want to display the auth link, else we want to display the public link. So that's it. So what we need to do now is to bring this navbar into our app.js. Alright, we're gonna bring in our navbar. Navbar component. Alright, so that's it. So it's going to be above every other. Actually, what we're going to do before we test out everything that we've built is in the dashboard, once the user logs in, it is redirected to the dashboard. So we want to make it in such a way that once the user is logged in and it's redirected to the dashboard, we should fetch the user's object automatically. Alright, so once that dashboard component loads, we want to get the user object, alright, which is an action we've already created, which is the get client user. So we're going to dispatch that action in the dashboard. So if we head to the client's dashboard, first we're going to import the get client user action, and also we need to get the use dispatch. So once we do that, and the use effect hook. So in here we're going to say the use effect, and in here we want to dispatch equals to the use dispatch. Alright, so that's the action we want to dispatch. Action is called. Alright, so this will actually get us the user object. In here we can just place a simple test, say welcome, and try and test out everything. Let's check up our server. Here we are getting some warnings. Never mind, we can stay, everything's still working fine. So if we try to sign up as a new user, if we hit the sign up, alright, you can see we are redirected to the client dashboard, and you see welcome here to user. That's everything is working fine. You can see it says welcome, we have great talents for you to hire. This is the so you can see the actions that is being dispatched. We have the register user success, and we have the client user loaded. Alright, so these are the actions that were dispatched. Now let's try and log out, and it's supposed to dispatch the logout action, but if you click the logout, no action is being dispatched. Alright, the reason why we couldn't log out our user was simply because of we have issues in our backend. You can see we are having runtime errors. This has to do with the URL. If you check, you can see fail to load resources 500 error, and you can see post to the URL 500 error. So this has to do with our URL. So if we check, we are just posting to /API/logout, but in our backend we have /logout. So after the logout there ought to be a slash, so we're having this issue because of just a simple slash. So let's fix that. In here we just think if we hit the logout, you can see the action was dispatched and we are redirected back to the login view. Our actions that were dispatched, you can see the series of actions that were dispatched. We have the client user loaded action was dispatched, and we see the logout action was dispatched. Okay, let's try and log in with the Henry. This time we try to reset our state. Let's try and log in. You can see the login success action was dispatched, and you can see we're in the dashboard, the client dashboard again. We didn't go to the freelance dashboard. You can see our token is reset, is authenticated, is true, his client is true. Alright, so that's him. Test password. So now if we try and log in, now in the, remember we didn't handle the freelance dashboard, so go now in the login. Oh, that's true, we didn't handle that. I told you guys to do that on your own. Okay, that's the issue, that's the reason why we are not able to do that. So that's an assignment for you. I remember I said it earlier that I gave this as an assignment for you to work on your freelance sign up and also the freelance dashboard on your own. Alright, this leads us to the ending of our video. This video has been a long one as a client. So following the same procedures like I did earlier, you'll also be able to implement the freelance login and freelance sign up. Alright guys, don't forget to subscribe. See you guys in our next video.